So we don't have sound. Sorry about that, but we don't have sound on Zoom. Yeah, we still don't have sound on Zoom. So we'll have to lip read you, Tracy. It's very quiet now. I can just hear it, but it's very quiet.
Bear with us for the technical.
I'm hearing it very, very faintly.
We hear a lot. Now, sorry. Should I try the level here? Okay.
Yeah, now I can hear you. Yeah.
All right. Be careful what you ask for. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending our weekly celebration of service. Do you want me to ding the bell again? Just kidding. Anyway, I wanted to kick off today. First of all, I was going to kick it off with thought for the day, but we have something even more special. A special guest who has returned, John Diltz, if you would stand. He is back in action. So great to have you back. And Takira, I'm digging the optimism with the shorts, man. I love it. So with that, if we could go to the thought for the day, since it's March Madness, we thought this would be most appropriate, and we have our star sitting at the back. We're working on the sound.
We will fight for dark cream and crimson, for the glory of old Iron. Never daunted, we will not falter in the battle. We're tried and true. Indiana, our Indiana, Indiana, we're all for you.
Go Connie. And let's go women. We won't talk about the men, but by golly, let's go for our women. All right. So for birthdays, actually, before we do birthdays, Amy, I saw you just sit down. Would you like to enter? Actually, I'm skipping all around, so bear with me. Jim Shea is up first with our reflection. And I have to give you the lavalier, I believe. There you go, sir. Thank you.
Hello, Rotarians and Zoomers. Yesterday happened to have been my family's national holiday, of course, St. Patrick's Day. For probably a good 50 years, my grandmother had one of the best St. Patrick's Day parties in Indianapolis. And when she turned 90, there was a big party for her, a couple hundred people, and I got the distinct honor of reading her life story at her 90th birthday party. And I'd like to read just a bit of it to you today. Maud Margaret Lantry Shea. I was born on May 3rd, 1901, the oldest of 6 children. Now, when I look back on things that happened in my life, I can laugh at those things that were not very funny at the time. My earliest memory of my childhood is when I was about 3 years old. We lived in Hawville. My father's cousin had a drinking problem. Welfare officials came and took her children away from her. I remember her running down the street, hanging onto the horse-drawn buggy, yelling for her babies. She was 3. By the time I was 6, 2 sisters and 1 brother had died. When I was about 11, my mother and I went down to Illinois Street to hear the first radio. There was a big crowd there. When I was 12, I took my first ride in an automobile, John Smith's new Ford. It cost $500. In 1913, when they had the big flood in Indianapolis, I lived on Harding Street up on a hill. The water came up to our top steps. Many people were forced out of their homes. Mom and Dad let a lot of them in our home. They were sleeping all over the floor. In 1914, Mom said I was 14, the legal age to work, and I started my first job in a chain factory. Later, I went to work at the phone company for $3 a week for 6 10-hour days. When I was 16, I was on a streetcar going by the jail on South Alabama Street. They were hanging a man on the gallows on the lawn of the jail as I went by. Before I married Paul, he was in the Army. During World War I, he was stationed in Seattle, Washington. While in the Spruce Corps, he was in the hospital with pneumonia. There were 6 men with it, and they put them on a screen porch in the dead of winter. Paul was the only one to survive. On October 9th, 1918, I married Paul. When we were married, we had $5 between us. I had to quit my job at the phone company as married women were not allowed to work there. We bought our first house for $50 down. It was the hottest house I have ever been in. I thought we would suffocate. When the second payment was due, we couldn't pay it, so we had to move out. And I'm going to skip to the end. There's a lot of details about family and children. Paul got cancer in 1948 and lived until 1952. He had a leg amputated and lung surgery. The cancer moved to the brain before he died. In 1960-61, I lost my mom, dad, and son, Bill. Within a short time, I lost 3 more sons, all in their 40s, and my youngest brother at 52. Later, I fibbed about my age. I took off 5 years to get a civil service job and worked until I was 63 in 1964. But there were a lot of good times, a lot of love and happiness, and time to raise the following family: 9 children, 29 grandchildren, 57 great-grandchildren, and 32 great-great-grandchildren. So anytime I think I'm having a hard time, I pull this out and realize I don't even know what hard times are. So here's to you, Maud Shea. Happy St. Patrick's.
Thank you, Jim. And now, Amy, if you could introduce our guests, both in the room and online.
Okay, we have a short list today, so feel free to clap with abandon. First, and please stand when I read your names. Melinda and Don Cedar, guests of Judy Witt and Jim Bright. And Scott Bergens, guest of Andrea Murray. And do we have any guests online?
Hey guys, we've got Brianna Solala here, and the rest of us are members.
Okay, welcome, Brianna.
Thank you, Amy. And now for birthdays, we have Jill Bond on the 20th, Hannah Hirsch on the 17th, Monica Kroner on the 12th, and Scott Shackelford on the 16th. And for anniversaries, Sandy Keller is on 8 years, Steve Moberly, 18 years, and Shelley Yoder, 12 years. And now for announcements. And our first announcement I recognize is online. Bear with me, I'll put this because I think I'm the one talking for whether you like it or not for quite a while here. So for announcements, Elizabeth Thompson, congratulations, has accepted a new position as Director of Surgical Services at the University of Vermont School of Medicine Health Center, and will be searching for a Rotary Club out there in Burlington. So her last meeting will be the 25th, and we want to wish you all the best of luck. That is fantastic.
Thank you.
And now for another exciting announcement. How many of you remember who Elijah Ramos, see, I'm testing y'all. How many remember Elijah Ramos, the young gentleman from California who was a guest of Jim Bright's here, and he was going to be going to grad school at 18. Does anybody remember when he was here? Okay, a few of you. He's coming back. He'll be here in July, and he's already reached out and asked for how to transfer his membership. And he's very excited. So really excited to have Elijah come join us. And then third, again, in the spirit of excitement, our own Caleb Poor has a large art exhibit at the Indy Airport. We will have a picture of it included in the roundabout, a link for you to see. We are surrounded here by talent. It's just amazing. And then on the not so happy notes, for those of you who remember past Rotarian Denny Moore, his wife Lorna Lou passed away peacefully on the 21st of February, and that service was last Saturday. And then lastly, Alon, if you could share with us about the living room in the spirit of civic duty.
Sure thing. Hi everybody. It's great to see you all. April 19th is an afternoon in which we're going to arrange between 4 and 6 living room conversations. And briefly what they are is a gathering of individuals, up to 6 individuals in somebody's home. And we talk about a topic for about 90 minutes. And I'm very pleased to say that we've got Braver Angels and PACE, the public political action, I forget what it's called. Anyway, it's the Institute on the IU Bloomington campus that's going to be joining us as well on this project. So I will be sending an email to all of you about it. And if you want to get involved, if you want to participate in any way, we would love for you to join us. Thank you.
That's awesome. All right, and I guess I will introduce the program today. As you all know, it's our club assembly to give an updates as to where we stand. So if you could load the deck for us, please, Isaac. And hopefully the remote control works. We actually have some exciting news in here as well. Test it. There we go. All right, I always use this slide at the beginning just to ground us all as to what we are here at Rotary for. And this is how I started when I first took over as president, and I want to keep true to this because it's all about fostering the ideal of service and making sure that we're networking and keeping integrity. So service above self, networking, and integrity. And I think we do a good job of that. One of the things that I always bring up on this particular slide as well is I get feedback I get lots of feedback, actually. That's why I have gray hair. But I get feedback on, we're always asking for something, and that's true. We are a service organization. We're always asking people to help here, help there. And the beauty of it is you can always say no, and you can always say yes. And obviously we would like everybody to do everything, which is not realistic. We all have different obligations, responsibilities, and we respect that. But please do not feel that when we're asking that you have to do that. But if we don't ask, you won't get anything, right? So I encourage everyone to remember that as we're asking and as we go through the slides. But we are people of action, and that is what Rotary is about. We do a lot of good in the world, and it's with people like you that we're able to do that. All right. Go. So for today, okay, do I have to point over here? There we go. All right, so specifically, we'll talk about where we are on the goals to date for our club. Then we'll look at the status of our budget and a look at the P&L, because I've also gotten feedback from people that they don't know where their dues go. And now with the new system, we can actually show you where your dues are going. And it's just riveting, let me say. And then thirdly, we'll talk about the Rotary Foundation from a specific standpoint of the Paul Harris Society, as well as the endowment campaign that is underway. So a little bit of a twist on the foundation. And then really what we have been working on as a club, our big projects, AMPATH, as well as the district grant that we're working on locally here. So that's what we have in store. And here we go with the budget, or sorry, with the button. Or maybe not. Can you advance it for some reason? All right, so let's take a look at our goals. Everything in green, we are on track or ahead of, and the others, I think we've got a ways to go on some of them, and some of them are very close. So specifically, service team, Sarah, you and Jeff doing a phenomenal job with all the help of everybody in the club and getting participation. So that's fantastic to see. From an foundation standpoint, we're about 66%. We still have some work to do, but again, we've got several months to close that out. So anyone that wants to participate, we welcome that. Service projects, we have a goal of 10. Currently, we have 7 that are closed out. We have quite a few more than that that are still in the works, but they haven't finished yet. So that's why you don't see some of that showing up there. So I'm confident that by the end of the year, we will have hit 100% on that one as well. Club membership, we're a little bit behind. That is really, I would say, more a function of me than Lori, because we have, Natalie and I and Claire have made a real concerted effort on making sure that we have a clean listing of who are members, because we pay for those dues as a club. And if people have kind of fallen off and no longer want to be, we want to make sure that we clean the rosters. It's just good hygiene. So that's why you see the number, but Lori and the team have been working diligently. We've had quite a few new members come in, which we're super excited about, but the reason we're not hitting it is because of the churn, because we've cleaned the books. Then from a new member sponsorship, we are too often, I teased Judy today, we're trying to get some new members, and she said, well, Jim's working. I said, but I need you to as well, because we need some different people to bring in new members. I said, you know, I do know how to work the numbers. I am a salesperson. But having said that, we all own bringing new people in. Jim, phenomenal. You always bring so many people to the club, and we love you for that. But we all have a responsibility for that, and we all bring different types of people. It's about diversity, bringing different types of people, and we all know different people. So love to see some more sponsorships there. And the Bequest Society members, I think we've got, I believe, 2 right now that are in the club. We need some new ones, and I think that will be taken care of as well, because I believe, Alon, if I'm not mistaken, you and I actually just signed up for this, and I'll talk more about that in just a little bit. And then for the rest of the activities, you can see Andrea, you and Heidi, our social activities. Sorry, I'm getting that confused with the family. Yeah, no, that's right. The social activities with the Christmas and some of the other stuff that we have done, a lot in the works there, so overachieving there. We had an inbound youth exchange student. She did come. She actually has gone home at this point, but she was here for the first 2 semesters of the trimester. I actually Bloomington North's not on trimester, so for the first half of the year. Rotaract clubs, of course, we have one. Alon, you are killing it with the media stories, the website, the online presence, the use of Rotary materials. I would venture to say our club outshine. I'd put our club up against anyone in this particular category in the state. And I would say hats off to Alon for all he does on that front. It's really amazing. And then leadership development participation. We've had several people that have gone through both online as well as some of the stuff that we have done locally here in the club. The strategic plan, we have that in place. We had a person sign up for the Polio Plus, which, by the way, given everything that's happening with USAID, I think the more we work on Polio Plus, the more important that becomes. And we are seeing more cases of polio if you are tracking that. Any other RILA participation? Of course, Joy always does a fantastic job. We originally wanted to have 5 students go into the RILA participation. And then when we did our budget, realized we didn't have funding for it. So we moved it to 2, which of course, Joy always gets us whatever we need on that front. So from a goal standpoint, feeling very proud of what the club is accomplishing there. Any questions on this page? All right, here we go with the through test for the button. Oh, it worked. Uh-oh, I went too fast. Oh, I'm button happy. All right, so this is what I said was riveting, and boy, isn't it. In all seriousness, hats off to Natalie, Steve Wicks, and Claire Kest. They brought in the new budget system through DAC, the automated system that we have at Rotary. And it has really allowed us to provide you with invoices that are detailed as to what you owe and what you are participating in. It also allows us on the backside to understand where are we spending money, what do we have outstanding from an accounts receivable standpoint, what do we have outstanding from an accounts payable standpoint, and why that's important. We then know where we stand with extra cash, and we can put that cash in different accounts, which you see down here. We've got the money market savings account that we opened, which gives us 0.6% APY. If you're under 10,000, it gives you, I think, 1.5 over 10,000. By the way, that extra interest that we brought in is what we've used to fund the DEI budget that we made a line item for. So now we're able to be smarter about the money that we have and understand the puts and takes much better. Steve was highly instrumental in helping us kind of clean that out and get a real good picture of where we stand. What I think is important to the members is on the left, you can see in the upper left corner, and I know it's small, but you can, we'll put this out, we'll put a link of this deck out onto Roundabout. I'm looking at Marilyn, hopefully that's okay. And that way you can go in and look and see, where does your money go? How much is going to what's the revenue going for the district conference, how much money are we bringing in for the toast? And some of these lines will have zeros because they're still in the payable line and the receivables. Remember, there's delays in when we get money in and out. So you may see some zeros, that's why. But we have the budget line items in there so that we know it's coming. You'll see a lot on the expenses. We have an accountant fee that we pay for the audits and for making sure that we're doing what we need to with the state, et cetera, and Rotary National. You've got all the meals that we pay. You've got the Natalie's salary as well as Isaac's all incorporated in there, printing. It's all listed out in there. So for those of you who said, I don't know where my dues go, that's what this is for. All right. Any questions on this one? I cannot tell you how big a deal this was to change over. And again, hats off Steve, Natalie, and Claire for doing this. And what that does is sets us up next year. We're going to do the Bloomington Rotary Foundation and bring it in, which is going to help us get it cleaner and better understanding as to where the money is. So super excited about that. All right, so let's talk about the foundation from an endowment standpoint. So Connie and I had the pleasure of going out to the Dayton's house a couple of weeks ago and getting kind of a pitch, if you will, on what's happening internationally from the headquarters on both the endowment front as well as the Paul Harris Society. And I would say, again, as I alluded to earlier with the polio, all that we do on the international front is becoming much, much more important as USAID and some of the other support mechanisms that were out there are going away. That's not to say that we can replace that, because I don't think we can, but we can certainly help offset some of the pain points that are happening. So our foundation is very carefully overseen by Rotary members specifically, who look at the foundation and make sure that it's being run properly and that the investments are being well spent. And they have earned 88% of all the funds are spent on program awards and operations. That's always something people want to know, is how much is actually going to get the good work done. In addition, they've earned 16 consecutive 4-star ratings from Charity Navigator. Again, this is all what this slide is basically telling us is Rotary is one of the premier nonprofit organizations that really does what they say they're going to do. So you can feel comfortable that when you invest, your money is going to get the jobs done. So from an annual fund share standpoint, when you give to the annual fund, and this is really talking about endowments, when you give to the annual fund, and when people are asked, I didn't understand what the annual fund was. To me, it was just the Rotary Foundation. I knew we had the Rotary Foundation and Bloomington Rotary Foundation. I didn't realize that within the Rotary Foundation International, there's also what they have called the annual fund versus the district grant fund. And so many areas actually have a lot of donors who give endowments and allow them to participate not only from the district fund giving, but also from the global international accounts. So this is a separate mechanism within Rotary International. I think that's a fair way to say it. Yolanda, is that fair? Okay. I just want to make sure because this is all new to me and I'm learning it. When you donate to the annual fund share for 3 years, your contribution is invested, and after 3 years, that money is then made available to fund projects. A portion goes into your district designated funds, also known as DDF, and your district can use it to help fund local and international projects. You get to decide how you want to use that money. A portion will go to the World Fund, and that money is used for grants, grant matches, foundation programs that are available to all districts or where the aid may be needed. Okay. So what are the benefits of giving to the endowment? When you donate, you give a gift of both immediate effect as well as long-term effects. The endowment donations are invested. A portion of the annual earnings from the investment are used to address immediate needs at the foundation and support programs that you as the donor have designated. The remaining funds are invested to ensure future impact, and gifts can result in tax savings. I think everybody's aware of that, and they may lessen the burden of tax burden on your loved ones. So here's an example of how an endowment gift can grow over time. I guess if you would take a look on the right, a named endowment fund of $25,000 that was established in 1995 has grown to a market value of more than $40,000. It provided spendable earnings since then combined of $48,000. So you can see over time that allows them to give back and do more projects good, right? So this gives you just kind of the flow. This is you do the endowment fund, the principal gets invested, then you have the spendable earnings that are calculated and distributed, and then you're able to do the good works both at the local level and also at the international level. Right now, they're trying to hit just over 2 billion internationally for endowed funds, and currently they're just under 1.5 billion. It's where we are. It's basically a pictorial representation. So from a types of gift standpoint, there's really 2 categories. One is just an outright gift, which I think is fairly self-explanatory. The one caveat is if you wanted to name the gift, if you wanted it to be named, it's a $25,000 to name it in the name of whomever you choose. You can do them at $10,000 if you want, that's fine, just FYI. And then of course, a gift plan for the future through a will or estate plan. That's another option that's out there. Okay. And then from a deferred gift standpoint, these are the options. If you decide to include it in a will, you can list it in the will or living trust. You can have a retirement plan beneficiary designation. You can have a life insurance designation, or you can set up a DAF, a donor advisory fund, with the Rotary Foundation if you have a portfolio. And then lastly, this was one I was not very familiar. I've always seen Jim and Judy. They have this little blue chevron underneath the Rotary pins, and there may be others in the club. I noticed it on YouTube. But we have quite a few people in the club that are giving already at $1,000 a year, which is great. But they aren't part of the Paul Harris Society, and technically you're qualified. So it's great that we have two, but I suspect we as a club have more than that. And I know, Alon, I think you're considering this, and I know I have, that we will be joining that just to help keep the momentum going within the club. And I would encourage, if there is others out there giving at that level, give myself, or Jessica Hain is actually our district leader on the Paul Harris Society. Give either of us a yell, and we'll be happy to help you in knowing what all the Paul Harris Society can do for you. Okay. And with that, we'll go to what we do best about service above self, the activity. We are people of action. And these are, as I said earlier, are our key focal points, both AMPATH, what's happening with AMPATH. Steve will give us an update on that. And then Sarah will talk about the district grant and how we're leveraging the TOAST funds to bring to life our local needs. And with, let me give you the mic.
I just failed the dexterity test. Good afternoon. So I'm fighting a cold, so I'll try not to lose my voice during the presentation. And Isaac, will you advance the slides for me? So we'll talk about AMPATH. Some of you are familiar with AMPATH, others may not. You can see at the top what it stands for. But basically, it's been a 35-year project starting between the IU Medical School and Kenya's Moi University, with the goal of improving public health and medical services in Western Kenya. And it's grown quite a bit. Other universities have joined the AMPATH consortium. In the early 2000s, AMPATH started as a leader in combating HIV/AIDS. It's now grown to 16 North American universities, began operating in Ghana, Mexico, and Nepal. IU continues to lead the overall AMPATH consortium and is also the lead medical school in Kenya, and they're headquartered in Indianapolis. Supported by a wide, diverse community of sponsors, including private donors, now the Bloomington Rotary Club, CDC, the Gates Foundation, USAID, we'll talk more about that later, and then quite a bit from the National Institute of Health, NIH, although that 70% number that I have up there is probably no longer accurate. Here is a very blurry map of the continent of Africa, showing where Kenya is. So you see it in Eastern Africa, and then a better map of Kenya, and the darker blue area in Western Kenya is the area served by AMPATH. So we'll talk a little bit about AMPATH's efforts in Kenya. So it's currently a partnership between the AMPATH consortium led by IU and several entities in Kenya, serving 24 million Kenyans at 300 care sites. And besides the award-winning HIV/AIDS efforts, AMPATH really has expanded to become a full-service medical provider. So here is our club history with AMPATH, and lo and behold, I realized putting this together that we've been working on this for 2 years. And I won't go through all the dates, but I will add that as far as we know, in the 100+ year history of the club, this is our first international project with IU. Last thing is that some of you have seen, but Alan has done a really good job in the last week putting out media releases announcing that we're about to do this training. So here are specific project details. $10,000 cost, $4,800 came from the club, $5,200 came from a handful of club members, and we're funding a 3-day positive parenting training seminar for 150 community health promoters in Western Kenya. And the training is going to be done at 2 sites. One of the sites they'll be doing in late March, the other site the first week of April. And then after training is complete, we'll review the project. We hope to have an AMPATH representative come down and present to the club and tell us what they did. And then we'll want to review the AMPATH relationship and determine what our next steps should be. So I'm going to skip over this slide because this is a March 7th update. And then after I put together the slide, I got an email from AMPATH yesterday afternoon that had all new information. So what I'll do, I'll read just some parts of the email that I received from AMPATH. And this is just kind of to bring people up to date on what one not-for-profit, a very large not-for-profit, what they're facing. So this is from our contact at AMPATH, Stacy Robinson. Stacy writes, currently 127,000 people living with HIV in Kenya, which also includes 5,000 children under the age of 15, receive care from AMPATH partners through PEPFAR, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, started during the George W. Bush administration. From 2004 to February of 24, AMPATH programs have received a total of approximately $450 million in support through PEPFAR. AMPATH is one of the largest life-saving HIV clinics in the world, with HIV suppression rates between 94 to 97%. Additionally, 110,000 orphans, vulnerable children, and adolescent girls receive supportive services through an AMPATH HIV prevention program, also supported through PEPFAR. And the PEPFAR funds were administered through USAID. So Stacy goes on, as of March 17th, we think there's still confusion that 3 of our programs have been approved to continue through PEPFAR with reduced funding, and payment for new work is now in progress. However, they're still awaiting repayment of costs incurred for paying employees during the pause. We have heard that the program aimed at orphans and vulnerable children won't be able to continue, but they're still awaiting confirmation. Recipients of AMPATH help are certainly very distressed. They're concerned they're going to lose their treatment. Some of them are going to clinics trying to hoard drugs. So it's been a chaotic situation. I'll return to the NIH. Stacy goes on to write, beyond PEPFAR, AMPATH researchers have attracted more than $247 million in research awards from numerous sources, with the vast majority from the U.S. National Institute of Health, NIH, with the current administration's executive order to cap the indirect cost rate to 15% and halting grant review meetings. There is incredible concern that future NIH support will be very limited for AMPATH projects. And like many of the initiatives of the new administration, the NIH funding model is in court right now. So that's the word on AMPATH. I probably have time to answer one question if there is one. Okay, thank you very much.
Well, I'm happy to be here to talk about what we're doing in town. And we have a very exciting district grant project this year, which has gone off in such directions you can't even imagine. So last year we picked My Sister's Closet and the commemorative suffragette bike rack as our community service project. This is not a normal bike rack. This is a bike rack honoring the women, suffragettes, who worked hard to get the vote for women about 100 years ago. And it turns out, you'll see a little bit later, that bicycles played a really important part in their ability to get around and organize, and also think about the rotary wheel. So here's a picture of, so the project is being designed and constructed by Joe LaMantia. Many of you will know who he is, local sculptor. You're probably familiar with the cat in front of the Fairview Elementary School, or the guitar on the parking garage, or the gazebo in front of the Beacon, the Shalom Center. It's very, very collaborative and uses a lot of recycled materials. So this is the bike rack. This is a side view looking about with a bike in front of it, you know, showing how the bikes will be parked. On the ends, you see the chains, and I'll show you an end view in the next slide. So on the right there is the end view, so you can see that it's the female symbol. And the bike racks, these are all made out of very heavy-duty steel. And then there will be a 12-foot tall Statue of Liberty, Lady Liberty, in the middle of it, that's made out of, you'll see the piece of steel in a minute, but also some recycled street signs from Bloomington, some sparkly bike reflectors, all kinds of interesting found metal objects. Okay. So here are Joe and a volunteer from My Sister's Closet laying out. Of course, you realize you draw the picture and it's on a piece of paper, but then you've got to cut the thing out at 12 feet. So you have to expand it and enlarge the picture. So here they are on the wall in the back room at My Sister's Closet, making that enlargement. Here it is on the floor on a big piece of paper at My Sister's Closet a couple of weeks ago. And then the steel, a 4x8 sheet of steel from Bloomington Iron and Metal, delivered to Bloomington High School North, where the students at the Hoosier Hills Career Center are cutting out the shapes from the stencil. And here they are unloading it. It took all of those kids to get that giant piece of steel out of the truck, donated by 2 men in a truck. Okay. Here they are inside, cutting the letters out. There are two words in the sculpture. One is freedom, the other is equality, on both sides of the bike rack. And here they are using a high-tech jigsaw to cut out these really big letters. And there they are, laying on the ground. Okay. Meanwhile, the city of Bloomington has agreed to give us all their discarded street signs. So they're piling up in this giant bin somewhere. And here's an exhibit about the project that's on display at City Hall right now through March. Many of you probably know where the exhibit, the cases are right outside the meeting rooms and everything right there on the first floor. And here you can see a couple of pictures of the suffragettes and their bicycles. And our bicycle, our pink, My Sister's Closet pink bicycle. So what's next? Well, we've got the pieces. The pieces are cut out. They have to be welded together, sanded, and metal powder coated so they don't rust or anything. And then they'll be delivered to the site. And here's a complication. And then constructed on site and then installed, permanently installed. Well, last week, after 9 years of looking for a place, after receiving notice that the convention center is going to be built and enlarged, and My Sister's Closet's lease been month to month on their lease since then, they have an accepted offer on a new building, and it's at 1204 West 2nd Street. I drove by the other day. It's across the street, kind of catty-corner across the street from Rockets, which you may know, the new convenience store there. This is very hugely exciting. But where to install the bike rack? So they are hoping to move by the end of April. If all goes well, they'll be in the new site, and we'll just deliver this thing one time to the new location and install it there. So we have set the dedication for as late as we possibly can, June 22nd, Sunday, June 22nd from 2 to 4. Please save that date on your calendar. We want a really big audience to be there on that date. And watch for lots of opportunities to help out between now and then. we promised to help with the dedication. So there's some easy volunteering work there, you know, pouring lemonade and that sort of thing. But before that, we may need help with the construction. We may need to help My Sister's Closet with their move. We may need to help with the installation. So stand by, more to come very soon. It's moving very quickly right now. The Rotary Community Service Committee is going to take over the bike rack, you know, our part of this bike rack project more and more. So Sandy can raise the money she needs to raise between now and April 30th, the closing date. So that's it. So you have something to add, Sandy? Do we have time? Yeah. What microphone?
Our closing date is actually May 30th. We have to have a lot of our inspections done by the 30th of April. I was corrected on that after our meeting, so.
Tick, tick, tick. Charlotte.
I have been concerned, where is My Sister's Closet going to be?
Where's it going to be? It's going to be at 1204 West 2nd Street. So it's on that corner where there's a fireplace shop and you used to turn to go to Rogers. It's kind of on the way out of town on 2nd Street, still on a bus line though, still easy to access. And much, you know, much nicer, nice parking lot. I went and checked it out yesterday. So as usual, our community service projects, we start out with a very small thing and it grows and we get to learn more about the organization. We find other ways we can help. This year is no exception. And don't forget about the deadline for next year's funding. I think it's March 28th. And stuff is on some of the tables. If you have any questions, be sure and ask me. We've got lots of people working on applications, I think.
Do we have any questions online?
Anybody who wants to ask a question, open up your mic and speak. Otherwise, I think we're okay here. By the way, I just absolutely love this project, and the equality and freedom sign is very, very touching at this time.
All right. Well, that's exciting. Thank you, Sarah. And I was thrilled to see that Hoosier Hills, one of my CASA kids actually does work. I'm gonna have to find out if he's working on that project. So it's nice to see that it's a complete community. It's not just Rotary. It's not just Joe. It is a complete community project. So nice. Well done, Sandy and team. All right. So Steve and Sarah, in honor of your program, we will be giving $100 for the quarter to the warehouse. And with that, our next program will be on the 25th in the Frangipana room, and our speaker will be Carol Seaman discussing Toward a Natural Burial. And I want to thank all of those who have helped today, our executive assistant, Natalie Blaze, past President Winston Shindell for greeting, Amy Osajima for the introductions, Alon for the stepping up at the last minute for Zoom hosting, Jim Shea for the reflection to remind us that when we think life's tough, it could be tougher. Ryan, my grandmother, frankly. Marilyn for all the work you're doing reporting. And of course, Michael, this was probably one of the easier ones for the microphone operation. And Isaac, as always, thank you for the audio that you've done. And with that, if you could put the slide up for the four-way test and stand if you're able. Of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? Fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun? Somebody's water. Good job.
Thank you for just rolling with a lavalier, Mike. What a.
Yeah. Sometimes you think, well, no, we tested it. It's no worries. It's like, we have options.
On the contrary, it's many worries.
Dude, I've been in much.
Well, I'm glad. It's glad we were able to, we made it work.
Oh, well.
Anyway, well.